Welcome to Her Unscripted episode 10. Today I'm going to discuss what people call the hustle culture, how to do it in a healthy way if that exists. Is there anything healthy about it? I personally never liked the word hustle, and I think it's just more of the history behind the word. I don't know if it's the 90s and early 2000s where people use the word like hustler in like a ghetto way. And so I always get the ick when people use the word hustle. It could be my family, it could be Arabs that own gas stations and stuff just use that word hustle or I'm a hustler. So I have this like negative connotation to it, but I realize that it's actually, there is a meaning to it. It exists. We're all doing it to survive. I'm doing it on a daily basis, and it's such a big part of who I am and the way I live life. The more I dissect the life I lead and how I always been, that concept of hustling has been in my blood, and the way I come off in every job I've ever had. I tend to want more, do more, rest less, not necessarily a positive thing and not necessarily made for everyone, but I do think it has something to do with our personalities and how we want to lead life. There's a lot of different concepts to it, and I think there's a different meaning to it based on the generation you're from. We have a generation, I think the people that are in their 40s and later 30s maybe, where hustling is going so damn hard and not sleeping, no necessarily like quality of life isn't such a priority with people that are hustling hard. There's this lack of balance and health, leading a very high stressful life. And that's something I relate to. I don't think it's necessarily the best route or the only route. You have the newer generation where quality life is priority. They will choose it over anything and everything. And in the workplace, it's pissed me off many times working with people that, don't make themselves uncomfortable or stress themselves out or work harder than needed or their requirement or what their job description is. And part of me would get so annoyed because I'm like, hello, we have a job here, we have a goal, we need to do X, Y, and Z to accomplish it. And then a part of me would be a little on the jealous side and kind of envy the concept of prioritizing themselves and prioritizing quality of life and whether or not, if an extra hour of sleep is needed, to take that extra hour of sleep. When I wanted to fit in things that I felt like were more of a self-care, like for example, working out, even in my 20s, it was later hours in the day, really early in the morning, still clocking in early, clocking out late, brainstorming, even though I didn't own my company at the time. And that's why I say it's probably a personality trait. And not all my friends did that. And they were smart. I don't think I needed to do that in my 20s. It was a little excessive. I didn't need to sit there and act like I owned the doctor's practice that I worked for and like I was going to become an absolute millionaire from doing their QuickBooks in a better way or disciplining or doing extra work for them. I do regret that part. But in my own life, I think the concept of this hustle culture is definitely implemented on a daily basis. It's more rewarding because one, obviously it's my business. I'm not saying you can't do it if it's not your business, but there has to be appreciation. There has to be growth in the job that you're in. There has to be goals that you're accomplishing and working with your employer. And that's when being excessive with leading this, hustling culture is the way to go, right? So it definitely doesn't mean that just because you own your business, you do it. Employees can do it as long as there's a reward, as long as there's growth. In reality, what I was doing was, regardless what I was doing, I was committed 2000%, which was actually on the stupid side. Even when I worked at my first job at Forever 21, it was $7.15 an hour. And when I say your girl worked harder than anyone in that store, that it was just me. And I thought I was going to, like, I don't know if I thought I was going to free Palestine in the process or something. I don't know. Then I worked at Express and I was the best at folding the jeans. I worked extra hours. I worked holidays. My parents would tell me about Thanksgiving. Oh, Thanksgiving dinner. I have to go work. I had to go work. That's not the way to do it. That's actually silly. That's a side job. I was in college. I didn't need to do that. It was really, really silly. But when you're trying to achieve something and grow and you see this path that you want to go on, that's when it's necessary, in my opinion. Now, do we do it to a point where it's unhealthy? I think naturally, when you have it in you, you are going to do it to a point where it's unhealthy. I don't think, it's made for everyone, because you really have to be okay on stepping on your own well-being at times. Like, I've said this before, where all of my savings were not even my savings, my paychecks were going to my employees to do payroll. I would be up at night trying to figure out how to increase revenue so we could make it this week. And till this day, if I wake up to use the bathroom, I'm thinking, okay, what can I do in that process? If I'm, sitting there and coloring with my kid, I'm thinking, but at the same time, when I'm at work, I'm thinking about my kid and how I could improve his life and how I could improve my life. So it's not just work, it's every aspect of your life you start dissecting. Back to whether there's a healthy approach to it. I think there's a healthy approach to everything if we learn to control ourselves, just like we need to control our desires. We need to control the level of hard work that we put into things. And I realized that in the last few years more than ever, when I think becoming a mom opened my eyes on the concept of being present, right? So that was control over my brain. I had gone through a few health scares, and I think it opens your eyes where life is short. No matter what's going on, you need to be present. And I also realized that I didn't want to not remember the first few years of my son's life, because I was too preoccupied between the hormone changes, building a business, building myself, recovering myself, healing, all that stuff. So the level of presence I'm in when it comes to Zane is, I mean, I have to give myself credit for it. I don't know how I tap in, but I am so, he also taught me. I think he taught me to give him my attention. He taught me to focus. But part of that is a bit like relaxing, because it forces me to disconnect from this concept of hustling 24/7. I think presence is important. I think tapping into things for me that might help reduce stress. And I had to test that out. What helps me reduce stress so I could maintain this high level of stressful life that I know is just gonna be part of my history regardless. It's just part of my personality, part of my DNA. And it's different things. So like working out for me is a big one. What types of workouts I do to help like release. I tapped into the runner's high, and that really healed me. I'm getting back into weightlifting, and I'm trying to, and that feeling of that one extra rep where you're holding your breath, and that just gives me this stressful relief. I've looked into saunas and cold plunges and what they do to our bodies. And that's, even though these are such slight reliefs that I experience, they do a lot when you're consistent, right? So consistently implementing things in your life that help reduce the stress. So like these are daily habits, daily routines. I treat them like they're part of my job. My coffee in the morning is healing for me. It calms me down. As ironic as that is, because caffeine's not supposed to be calming you down, but it just the concept of having a warm cup of coffee in my hand on the corner of my couch and tapping into my own thoughts, and then my son waking up and running to me, all that is just, it brings me peace. So it helps start my day correctly. Working out, trying to implement that as often as possible. I've struggled a lot since motherhood with implementing it consistently. But when I say I struggle, it means, oh, I was only able to do it once or twice a week versus my preferred 4 to 5 times a week. That really helps me be a healthier person. And not just physically, I'm talking mentally. Because what I'm talking about, the unhealthy part of, this hustling culture, is the mental aspect of being unhealthy. I, I even wear this whoop, right? And it dissects everything for me. I tapped into the importance of sleep, right? And what I need to do to change in my life to sleep better and have a better recovery. So, I mean, I might do it to an excessive amount where like my friends make fun of me when I wear it out with my fancy outfits, but it helps me tap into myself and make sure I'm always recovered to a certain point. I'm drinking enough water. I'm physically active enough. I'm taking enough steps during the day. All that healing for me. Another thing that I do is luckily the industry that I'm in forces me to be around healthy things that I could implement, like doing my blood work. I am psycho when it comes to my vitamin intake, and I do it based on my blood work specifically. I am into peptides. I want to perfect what I can perfect. So the idea is controlling what you can control, and these things are things I know I can control. I can't control the outcome of my day or my work day or my business at all times because there's so many different factors that play a part. So I have to make sure I am keeping my head above water in the way I can. And I kind of said that to my mom once with the cold plunge, because she's like, I just don't get how you do that. And I'm like, doing it a certain amount of times a week just keeps me breathing. And I think if I didn't implement all these healthy aspects like I didn't before, you crash out, you crash, all of it. And I've been there, I've done that. And this helps me, handle life and handle what I need to handle without being reactive or breaking down as a human being. Because in the end of the day, we are human beings. We are, our bodies are, our responsibility to take care of, and they do crash when you aren't taking care of it the way you need to. So, and that's our responsibility. The thing is, with leading a very high stress life, the concept of crashing is because your body is crashing, because it's not meant to be at a high stressful state for too long. What does stress do? It causes inflammation in your body. Inflammation is the number one cause of most diseases and illnesses. Think of yourself when you get a cold after an extremely stressful week. It's your body's crashing. Inflammation causes autoimmune diseases. It's known to even lead to cancer. Chronic inflammation due to chronic stress can cause so many health factors, and no one should allow themselves to be in that state for too long. I can't say you don't be in that state, but for too long. That's where we need to implement the healthy habits to help reduce inflammation, to help reduce stress, so we don't put ourselves in situations like an autoimmune disease that you can't get rid of. Anyone that knows, once you get that autoimmune disease, you're living with it. You're living with it for the rest of your life, and you're struggling, and it flares up and it calms down, and it becomes your life. Your life becomes trying to control that, other than everything else that we need to control. I think it's very important to know that just because you take a rest or go on vacation or take a nap or sleep 8 hours, it doesn't mean you're not part of this hustle culture. We look at rest and recovery, and again, it's generational, as like a negative thing. It's okay to rest. And that's something I'm trying to teach myself. It's okay to sit back and not be doing something at all times. You know, I joke around that TikTok has been my way to like unwind, and it's forced me to rest after I put my son to sleep, like to not work during that time, because I really do feel like I need to be checking things off of my list. And it's not just work, it's my house. I need to switch the laundry, I need to clean, I need to organize my food, I need to meal prep because I'm trying to lose fat and gain muscle. It's truly a mental illness on my end. And I want to implement that it's okay to rest. I want to implement that it's okay to go on vacation. And that's something I really would like to do this year. I want to implement that it's okay to take a day off and maybe turn my phone off and put it on do not disturb for extended periods of time. I want to be okay with that. And I think we all need to be okay with that so we could function at optimum levels. I do believe my bad habit of not resting stems from my mom. And because she never stopped, and she had 8 kids and literally never freaking stopped. Our house was in perfect condition at all times. Everyone was doing their homework. If we weren't doing our homework, she was trying to help us memorize Quran. If we weren't doing that, then, there's always something that we were doing. We were always in tip top shape as kids. And we weren't allowed to sleep in. That was my mom's biggest thing. No one was allowed to sleep past 7. She didn't care if it was a Saturday, Sunday, if your school started late, you couldn't sleep in. And I think that kind of built some anxiety in me where I can't sit down and calm down and just kind of like sit. I do like how productive I am. Give me a checklist and I'll check everything off of it. But I know I need to find a place and a way to disconnect and calm myself down and truly rest, because my body needs it, but more than anything, it's my mind. And like I said, everything I do literally keeps me above water. And I'm so grateful that I'm health conscious enough to implement those things in my life. And I know so many people that don't. And I actually get sad for them because it's so unhealthy, that like constant pressure of never stopping but not doing anything healthy for yourself. So we all need to tap into what's our goal, what are we trying to achieve, what are we doing to achieve it, and what are we doing for ourselves to be in the healthiest position to be able to work hard enough to achieve our goals. And I think that's the most important thing, is being able to identify things, because just going, where are you going? What are you doing? Just because you're moving, you're not being productive. That fast pace, what are we doing? What's our goal? What are we trying to achieve? You need to be working towards something, and working towards something means working on yourself in the process, or you will be the most unhappy, unhealthy human being when it's time to actually enjoy what you've worked so hard for. You're not going to be healthy enough or have the people that you love around you to be able to enjoy this hard work. And I'm talking out loud, talking to myself so I could remind myself of this. We need to have a plan of action. We need to have a plan of action towards our well-being, towards our goals, towards the life we want to live, the people we want in our lives. Part of the sanity of our stress is cutting out people that cause stress. And, that's my biggest thing is I want to reduce inflammation in my body. And I know I'm talking about it more of like an internal issue, but there's so many factors that cause that. And stress is the number one. And obviously bad food, sugar, all that kind of stuff. But stress is the number one. I know that that's what it causes for me. And I am doing everything I can not to get an autoimmune disease. I don't want it. I don't want it just as bad as I don't want diabetes. So I eat clean so I don't get diabetes when it runs in my family so strong. I don't want to be overweight and unhealthy. So I eat clean and I work out. We do things that clearly correlate with the outcome that we want. Just because we can't see stress and we can't see inflammation, it doesn't mean that's not part of our daily plan and as important of a goal as what we're hustling to achieve.